It's Wednesday, February 24th, and this is CT Pulse on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski with my co-host Josh Fisher.
Hi, Kate. How are you?
Good. We got a great show today.
We do. We had Bob Duff in here earlier in the week. We recorded an extensive interview with him that touches on everything from electric cars to legalizing marijuana to how much he was really rooting for Ted Cruz to get the Republican nomination for president.
No, it was a great interview. So we're going to be rolling into that soon. Of course, later in the show, Doug Smith, our editorial cartoonist, joins us, and we have a breakdown of some interesting stories you should be following this week.
Yeah.
All right, but let's roll into that interview with State Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff. Check it out. We're happy today to have State Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff joining us. He's a Democrat who represents the 25th District comprised of Darien and Norwalk. Senator Duff, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you know, you've been in the news a lot lately for some legislation you proposed that would allow electric vehicle manufacturers to sell directly to consumers. Can you give us a little bit of background on this?
Yeah, sure. There was a bill last year that it wasn't my bill, but it was a bill that allowed electric car vehicles. The final product was to have up to 3 places where they could sell cars directly to customers. Manufacturers could sell directly to customers. This year's bill that I've introduced is the same as last year's bill. That was the final product. And basically what it does is it allows electric vehicle companies to sell those cars directly. Right now, what has been the model all across the country, and Connecticut's no exception, is if a company has a car to sell, like say GM or Ford, they would then go through a middleman, which is the dealership, and then the dealership would sell it to the consumer. The model now, which is kind of sometimes referred to as the Tesla model, is disruptive in the sense that they want to sell it directly to consumers. So that's where you have to change state law, again, not just in Connecticut, but all over the place. What the bill really does is it really continues our commitment to clean energy because these are electric vehicles, but it also produces jobs and sales tax revenue. We have 1,000 Tesla owners in the state of Connecticut, and they have bought their cars someplace else, some other state, which means that we've lost sales tax revenue and we've also lost those jobs. So this just allows 3, and so that people can then go buy them wherever they want in the state, and hopefully we'll get a pass this year.
So why, though, would it just be limited to electric dealers?
Well, right now, that is the model that's out there. The ones who do want to sell electric cars do want to do it directly. So we don't want to say just one company can do this, because it's not about a company such as Tesla.
Right.
But because there are others, electric car companies that are out there that may, who knows, they may end up doing better than a company like Tesla. And frankly, if GM wanted to sell their Volt directly to customers, this would allow them to do that as well. So I think because of the fact that Connecticut has a real commitment to clean energy, we know that it's an area that is probably growing by leaps and bounds, and that we should be supporting that as well.
Now, obviously, this is something that's made some car dealerships nervous. So what would you say to them, who really, many are against this?
Well, I have a good relationship with the car dealers and their association. We've worked very hard on a number of pieces of legislation over the years that have helped them and helped them with the manufacturers and also with consumers. But I would say to them, look, this allows only 3 in the state. There's hundreds of dealers all across the state of Connecticut that sell new cars, and we do have disruptive technology, and that is why we have companies like Tesla, Uber, Lyft, and others that are kind of changing the way we all do business a lot of ways. And I would just say that we are looking to make sure we maximize the tax revenue in the state, because people are clearly buying those someplace else. We want to maximize our jobs here in the state of Connecticut, and we want to make sure that consumers have choice. And again, this is all about our commitment to clean energy that we have, because those cars do run electrically. We have the charging stations all over the state of Connecticut, and this just adds on to what we've already been doing.
What's some of the feedback you've received so far now that you've put this out there, proposed this legislation?
Yeah, thanks. I've received really tremendous feedback. Some of the dealers aren't real happy right now, but they understand. And again, I've been in touch with them since December about this issue. But I would say the average consumer out there thinks that this is a really good idea, and that they want to have that choice. They can buy cars that are probably cheaper to more expensive, and why shouldn't they be able to buy that car in the state in which they live?
Well, speaking of taxes and bringing taxes into the state, Connecticut once again is facing another budget deficit as you in the Senate and the House work on making some cuts, which the governor has called for. First off, how is it going? Because in the past, the state has put off cuts, and I know you as being part of the leadership are you in a sticky situation? Is that fair to say?
Well, I would say this, that we have continually made cuts since 2008. Every year we have made cuts. We've actually made over $1 billion of cuts this year. We have over $1 billion of cuts next year, and we're going to continue to cut the budget. The issue really is the fact that we have this new normal. The economy nationally has not really rebounded the way we would like it to have rebounded since the Great Recession. We're seeing unemployment levels really at lows, but we're not seeing incomes rise at the same rate. And really, the fact that incomes really haven't risen over the last 20 or 30 years from a standpoint of valued against inflation. So that's some of the reason. The GDP of our country was only 0.7% last year. So you look at some of the factors of why revenue's not coming in at quite the speed or the rate at which we like, and that's some of the reasons. Our income is actually going up, but just not at the level of which we would like it to go up or to meet the needs that's out there for the citizens. So we have to continue to look for better ways of doing things. We have to continue to look for efficiencies. We continue to look for ways in which we cut back in areas that are not the core services of the state. So that's requiring some very, very tough decisions. But we have made a lot of tough decisions over the last few years, and you think about. I'll even bring up the issue of unfunded liabilities like pensions. We have 4 different tiers in our state employees, and the Tier 2, Tier 2A, Tier 3 are 92 to 95% funded. The Tier 1, which are employees from the 1980s and before, that's where the problem is from a standpoint of not being paid. Those were underfunded or unfunded for decades. And so when you think about that, we're catching up to that, and we're paying $1.2 billion this fiscal year and next fiscal year in addition to that to catch up to those payments. And if we didn't have that $1 billion to pay, if legislatures in the past had done what they were supposed to do, we wouldn't be talking about deficits right now.
But so it seems like, Senator, every year when we get to the budget season, we say, Barnes comes out with a report that the projections are off that we made. And it seems like the state of Connecticut budgets on hopes and dreams instead of actual reality. When was the last time that we reached our what the state had projected? I mean, it was when I think Roland was maybe governor. Well,
it was a little different back in the 1990s, and I think it was a little different back in the mid 2000s. But if you look at the fact, what he did with state employees, which was to purposely underfund the pensions for 20 years and then have hit a wall and a balloon payment in 2032. Again, that's probably the secondary reason why we're in the issue of pensions. But we've always balanced the budget. We have to balance the budget. The issue really is I think what happens in the media, and I understand it from your perspective, is that when you hear Office of Fiscal Analysis says, well, there's another projected deficit of $1 billion a year after and $1 billion a year after that, well, that's because the way we forecast things of current services and then adding on top of a cost of living increase. We can't do that, nor have we done that. And we haven't done that for a long time. So these numbers that come out, that get reported out, really are very false, and they give a bad impression really of where we are from a budgetary standpoint, when in fact, if the budget is $19 billion right now, which is basically a very similar number than it was from a few years ago, and the Office of Fiscal Analysis says, well, it really should be $23 billion. Well, I understand why they would project this big deficit, but the reality is that we're not going to have that deficit because we have to live within our income that we have, and we have to live within the means that we already have. So therefore, that kind of projection doesn't hold water, and we have to then project out correctly. We're never going to be able to do 6 or 7% increases because that's just not how the world works anymore, and it hasn't worked that way in a very long time. So that's why we're looking this year at different ways in which we project out some of the numbers. We do different ways of budgeting, so that it's not just kind of adding on top of current services, current services. Then this big number comes out and it scares everybody. Because even in the good years, and if you go all the way back to Governor Weicker, and you look back at the projections from the Office of Fiscal Analysis, they will say pretty much every year for the last 25 years we've had deficits, even years we've had surpluses.
So since the income tax started, we've had deficits.
No, I'm just saying that that's as far back as I know somebody went.
Right.
But if you look back at how it gets projected, it's been projected as deficits. Even the years we had $1 billion surplus, a year out, the Office of Fiscal Analysis would have said you would have had a $2 billion surplus. So the numbers that they project out aren't always accurate to what we do in our budgeting standpoint. So it's almost like two parallel roads that never meet. But one's scary.
But then
and one's
should we
not so
change
scary.
how should the state change how that's done? If it's wrong every single year for a generation, why do we keep doing it?
Nobody's wanted to make that change, but I think this year we're finally making that change because again, it's different economic reality. If you think about the fact of how after a recession, where Connecticut would generally have good years and then it would hit a recession, so you have a couple down years and then you go right back up again. What's happened in the last few, after this recession, was that even though incomes went up, it didn't go up traditionally and historically the way it always has in the past. So that's where people, and that's where some of the problem gets to. People always expected, okay, after this year or after the next year, we're going to finally get back to where we were. And that hasn't happened, but that hasn't happened nationally. And you look at, half the other states in the nation, many of them are in the same predicament that we're in. Just revenue and income and just the spending is not there. For instance, I had an economist over a year ago in December talk to us about low gas prices, and they said it's going to put $20 billion a month into consumers' pockets, and they're going to spend that money. Well, the reality is they're not spending that money. They're doing the right thing. They're saving that money, and they're paying down debt. So is it good short term? No. Is it good long term? Absolutely. And that's really what we want to think about as the long term.
But the perception used to be, I remember talking to realtors many years ago, that when there was a recession, Connecticut was the last one in it and the first one out of it because we just had that base. But it seems like that doesn't exist anymore. And a lot of people have made the argument, myself included, that it seems like the government employees and unions are more important than the taxpayers. And you, I got to give you credit too, as a Democrat, particularly from Fairfield County, you haven't always voted with the rest of the Democrats on that, Senator Duff. But is that a fair perception for those of us to have who aren't up there in Hartford every day?
I don't think that's a fair perception because I think that there's, everybody has their constituencies obviously, but you try and look at things in a fair way. I mean, you obviously want to pay fair wages for a job that's done, and you don't want to make scapegoats out of people. But on the other hand, you have to face the realities that are out there. And Governor Malloy doesn't really get enough credit for what he did back in 2011 with state employees, where folks they didn't get raises for 2 years. We created a new tier of state employees, which is Tier 3. And for all employees, he made health and pension changes that are going to save $21 billion over 20 years. So there are things that are being done, and I think there are reforms being made. But because of the fact that we're not demonizing a group of people, many folks think that there hasn't been any change.
But I don't think it's demonizing, right? It's that like people in the private sector throughout Connecticut got pay cuts, lost their jobs because the bosses, the people who ran the company, couldn't afford to pay them as much as they would, and it seemed like Connecticut couldn't afford to pay its employees as much or keep as many employed, but the state union employees vote for Democrats, and that's a good thing, so let's keep them happy.
Well, let's look at it this way. We have 500 less state employees now than we did 4 years ago. We're probably going to have even less than that coming up.
But that's through attrition more, right?
Through attrition, but there was also a no layoff pledge or part of the contract when there were the 2 zeros and when there were the health and pension benefits. So you got to give something to get something, right? And that's part of, and so some of the folks you're talking about in the private sector are not represented by unions, and they didn't have a contract from the 1990s that went all the way to 2022. So in order to open up the contract, and for both sides to agree to open up a contract, you got to have a little give and take on that. So I think that the long-term benefits were good, even with the 2 zeros that people got, because again, actuarially, that reduces some of the pension payments in the long term, as well as the changes to health and increased pension payments that employees have to make as well. So I know you personally are not demonizing folks, but I'm just saying that there have been changes, and because there's not like a Scott Walker out there who's jumping up and down and saying things that we may think are a little outrageous, that changes have been made. And again, you have a smaller workforce, you're asking more people to do more with less. But we're also, on the other hand, even though we have like issues with DMV and Department of Social Services and others, we're moving the state into much more of a technological area so that you don't have to have as many state employees. You can do more things electronically, but that all takes a lot of work, especially, when you have, 14 million records in the DMV. It's hard for that to go without a hitch. And, we obviously have a new commissioner now, acting commissioner. We'll have a new commissioner soon. 3M is a company that is consulting us and that we bought their software. And I know we have to make that right and we have to make that better real fast. But those are the bumps along the ways. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why previous administrations didn't want to do this stuff, because it's hard, it's painful, and it's disruptive, and people get aggravated by it. I understand it, and nobody wants the bad press.
Right.
But sooner or later, you've got to do it.
Was 3M the right choice to do that? We had your colleague Tony Wong, Senator Tony Wong, on here, who was saying of all the companies to choose to do the DMV, why did the Minnesota Mining and Minerals, or what their official name is? I mean, Ed.
You have to ask Governor Rell's administration, because they're the ones who bought the software.
Oh, really? Okay.
Interesting.
All right.
There you go.
All right.
All right, you learned something. Well, switching topics now, we do want to ask,
It's the new year. The to-do list is long, and it's easy to feel pulled in many directions at once. Your professional, personal shoppers at Walter Stewart's are ready to check groceries off your list by shopping for you. Save extra time this year and spend it doing more important things. Great food and wine delivered to your home with the same-day service. Shop Stewart's online at stewartsmarket.com.
Had a sports injury that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist quickly. Their highly trained orthopedic professionals expertly treat you without an appointment. Skiing, snowboard, or sports accident, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care open Monday through Saturday in the iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk. Call 203-845-2070 or coastalorthoexpress.com. Find them on Facebook at Coastal Ortho CT.
Darien Sport Shop is a unique store because it's a family store. A busy mom can come in with kids in tow and find everything she needs for them, and even find a dress for herself for Saturday night. And if she's in a rush, she can simply go home and order it from us that night. We'll deliver it the next day. The Darien Sport Shop. We're pretty on the outside and amazing on the inside. Conveniently located with free and easy parking at 1127 Post Road, Darien, Connecticut. Or shop us online at dariensport.com.
Here at the Organic Yard, we use bionutritional products in our lawn care programs, which reduces the need for fertilizers, nitrates, phosphates, and pesticides up to 80%, making a safer environment for your family and pets. With our organic lawn treatment, you'll receive vigorous, healthy plants with improved root development and better drought resistance. Enroll now in our 2016 Organic Yard program and get a free organic deer tick treatment. Call us today at 914-764-5491 or go to our website at millerslandscapinginc.com.
Hi, I'm Rob Adams with my good friend Donald Eng, and we're the home team for Nutmeg Sports, Monday through Wednesday at 2 o'clock right here on the HAN Network. We are the place for all things Connecticut sports, so come hang out with us on Nutmeg Sports. Don? They don't call him the best color man in the game for nothing. Nutmeg Sports, 2 o'clock Monday through Wednesday right here on the HAN Network. The 2016 FCAC playoffs are coming to the HAN Network. We'll have all of the big games beginning February 23rd on the court and on the ice. And we'll have it all live and streaming HD. This is your home for the 2016 FCAC Winter Championships. The HAN Network.
And we're back live in studio on CT Pulse. I'm Kate Czaplinski with Josh Fisher. Josh, we have more of our interview that happened on Monday with State Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff. We asked him about recreational marijuana.
Yeah, and then we also talked more about the everything from web domains being bought up around the state for potential governors' campaigns, and we asked Senator Duff about his hopes, maybe about his future, and who he wants to see atop the ticket this fall for president.
So check that out more with State Senator Bob Duff. Well, switching topics now, we do want to ask, there is a bill before the General Assembly that would make Connecticut the first state in the Northeast to legalize the recreational use of marijuana. Just want to ask where you stand on that issue. We're hearing
I
it's
think
not going to go
Vermont is
far.
actually ahead of us on that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Vermont
Well, they haven't
has about-
legalized it yet, right?
No, but there's a bill pending in their legislature about it, so, that kind of makes sense a little bit in Vermont,
Yeah, it
right?
does. It does.
The Green Mountain State, yes.
Right. I don't think it has a chance this year. The governor was very lukewarm on it. I don't think the legislature has support. I mean, look, we reduced some of the penalties for small ounces of marijuana so that people did not go into jail. Most judges would give people tickets, and we just kind of put that into law rather than tell people they had to go to, there's a chance that they might go to jail, which we know is very expensive. And then medical marijuana we've done, and that, the public supported that. But those were tough fights. Those were uphill battles. I don't think the time has come yet.
I saw Ken Dixon wrote a really entertaining column about this.
It would bring a lot of money in.
It would bring
It
some
would.
money
It
in,
would bring all the money, and then also just the municipal money. He talked about how everyone would be driving up here and getting their pot, and then they want to maybe go to like the Bruce Museum at Greenwich where there's not much parking. So think of all the parking tickets that Greenwich could.
There's always unintended consequences of everything we do. So I'm not sure that I want to.
Where do you stand on the issue?
I haven't really thought about it too much because there's so many other issues right now that I think that I need to worry about, like the budget, jobs, transportation, things like that. Something like this that really has no chance of passing this year. It's every legislator has a right to put in their own proposals. I'll focus on the ones I think actually have a chance.
Now, just in the kind of the same topic area, I mean, we've talked on other shows before with some mothers who want to legalize medical marijuana for their children, and I know that's come up before. Do you see that coming up again or being something that might move forward?
Yeah, I could see that being a debate, and I think that's a good debate to have. I probably would want to, before I opine on that issue, I'd probably want to speak a little bit more to the medical community about that.
Right.
But there are kids who have some serious diseases, and would that help them a little bit? I don't know, but I'm certainly open to. I wouldn't shut the door on that. I'm opening to listening.
And this
open
is,
to listening
and to be
on
clear,
that.
this is a pill that does not have the THC, which is the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana, in it, to help these kids. And we all, and Kate, I believe, not to speak for her, agrees with me because we've covered this before about how this is too bad because the other choice is for these children to take barbiturates and actually drugs that are much worse than even just having a joint anyway, and are causing. Look at the heroin epidemic that we see sweeping across New England and affecting.
Yeah, the heroin. Yeah, that's a real problem. Is the heroin addiction that we have right now? I mean, it's like the new crack from the '80s.
We're seeing it everywhere.
It's very cheap, and that's. We just talked the other day about Connecticut is the second state to end veterans homelessness, and somebody emailed me over the weekend and said, I see a veteran who's on the exit of the highway. And what could we do? And I said, well, there's lots of programs now with coordination like never before, and I don't want to stereotype this particular veteran or this particular person. But the issue is lots of times when you see folks who are at the side of the highway or asking for money, what happens now, because heroin is so cheap, they get a few bucks, they go buy some heroin, they get high, they come back. So we've got to be very careful that we're not feeding people drugs, when we think we're trying to help them with food or drinks or shelter.
I mean,
or
I think
something
even
like that.
homeless organizations will tell you don't give money to panhandlers. That's not, you could be doing more harm than good in that case. So
and I'm not stereotyping that person,
Right.
but it's something for people to kind of keep in mind because it is becoming an epidemic, and we want to make sure we provide police officers, and because we have it now with state police, with the drug to get folks who have their heart stopped to get them back alive again, and that's had some great success.
So moving on to something else, and Senator Duff, I've been covered you since I became editor of the Darien Times back in 2005. Shortly after you replaced Alex Knopp in the state Senate, right?
And Bob Gennaro.
Bob Gennaro, right? Yeah. Okay. So, and one thing that's always really impressed me is your constituent services. I've never heard, you hear about a lot of different state reps and state senators who you always hear people complain about them. Some people might not agree with maybe a vote that you made, but no one ever says Bob Duff didn't get back to me, Bob Duff didn't, So what is the most, what do you hear most from your constituents?
Well, I think, it's a number of different things that I hear from folks. I mean, it could be, it's interesting. One day, I was on a train going down to Washington, and it was in December when the Syrian refugee crisis was going on. So a lot of people were talking to me about that, even though I had no role in that. And then later on that day, I think somebody asked me about some trash cans or recycling that wasn't picked up, and I'm like, oh, good. At least I'm off Syrian refugees and I'm on to trash. But it's always kind of like juggling the ball and making sure, because what's important to one person may not be important to somebody else. So I hear a lot about from Fairfield County. I hear a lot about traffic and transportation, but I think from my standpoint, it's important just to listen and make sure that you're responding to folks on whatever issue is important to them, because and here's the thing, is that lots of times people will contact me about something, and then I'll get it to an agency, and then voila, it gets fixed. And so it's just, sometimes I tell people, look, your voice will help me do my job better because I'll get it in front of the right people. And really, I always tell people this, is that one of the best parts of my job is kind of like fixing something or righting the wrongs that people have. So some people will, they'll have an issue with a state agency, or they'll have an issue with a business, or they'll have something that'll happen, and I'll be able to step in and kind of right the wrong. And really, that is the best part of the job, is and using kind of the and I hate to use the word power, but kind of the authority or the influence of your position to really help somebody who might have been voiceless and not been able to get that help that they needed. So, the votes and the laws and all that kind of stuff are one thing, and those are sometimes intangible. But when you help somebody who's had an issue that, by the time they call me, they're usually pretty upset. They're not calling. I'm usually not the first call. But being able to help them with that and fix it for them really is a rewarding part of the job.
So before we let you go, who are you supporting for president?
Well, I haven't announced my support for anybody at the moment.
Tony Wong announced his support for John Kasich. It was an exclusive with he was here. I don't know. Just throw that out there. So
Putting pressure on him.
disclosure.
Yeah, well, I've only got 2 choices.
Yeah, I know. And then that was months ago, so he had about 10.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I joked that I'm waiting for Joe Biden to get in the race.
Aren't we all?
But, but I don't know. I mean, I think Hillary's going to get the nomination at this point. I haven't publicly endorsed anybody, nor do I think really Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, or anybody in the public is waiting for Bob Duff's endorsement. But we'll see what happens.
Which Democrat gives the Connecticut Democrats, which every one in the state Senate and state House are up for re-election this year.
Right.
And you guys had a supermajority 10 years ago. You won a supermajority in November of 2006. That's kind of been slowly, as would happen with we see that in Congress too.
Things ebb and flow.
Yeah, it's 87 to 64 Democrats to Republicans in the House and 21 to 15 in the Senate.
Right.
Which Hillary or Bernie gives you a better chance?
Ted Cruz, I think.
That was my next question. Which Republican gives you the best chance? Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz. Yeah.
Do you think someone like Trump could do well in Connecticut?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because it's only February and there's so many months until November, and I'm just trying to think of all the groups of people that he hasn't offended yet. I mean, last week it was the Pope, and a certain group of Catholics, I'm assuming, got offended by what he said, and he's offended lots of other groups. So we'll see. There's lots of time to offend many more people.
Now, we do have to ask if you're offended that State Representative Republican Jason Perillo has not purchased BobDuffForGovernor.com yet, that we can tell.
Well, I already own BobDuff.com.
Okay,
so
there you go.
He probably tried that one.
Yeah, Representative Perillo was buying up a bunch of different domains.
Yeah, I have to have a conversation with him about that.
So the Democrats bought Jason Perillo for Governor.net, and there's a bunch of not nice links to it.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm not sure really why he did that, and look, I love what I'm doing. Being majority leader is a lot of fun. Yeah. So I'm good where I am right now.
All right, fair enough.
Well, thanks a lot for coming
in today. Thanks for having me. It's great.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
I really wanted something that felt like a home. Coming from a big house, I wanted the feel of a home as opposed to a condo. The construction is incredible, whether it's the floors, the fireplace, the moldings, the lighting. It's as peaceful as my home was in the middle of the woods. It feels like a house. It does not feel like a condo or a townhome. I feel like I'm in my house.
For more than 50 years, Triple S has been Fairfield County's expert service for carpet, upholstery, and drapery cleaning. We provide the best in repairs and in-depth restoration, understanding fabrics and how to properly clean and restore them. Our staff will come to your home to clean your wall-to-wall carpet to perfection. We can also pick up your fine carpets and bring them to our facilities. With locations in Norwalk, Stamford, and Stratford, Triple S will get the job done fast, big or small. At Triple S, you can count on our people as well as our cleaning. Find us at triplesclean.com or 203-847-8000. I'm Kate Czaplinski. Join us for Coffee Break, weekdays at 11 to get the latest Connecticut news, weather, high school sports, and more. News doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break on the HAN Network.
You are watching the HAN Network, and you're not alone. Nearly 500,000 viewers enjoyed our broadcasts in the first 5 months. Advertise on the network that reaches Fairfield County, Connecticut's most engaged audience. Contact Jessica Murrin, Advertising Director, at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
When it comes to local entertainment, we've got it all.
From movies, local artists, etiquette, and more.
Watch HAN Arts and Leisure every Thursday at 2 on the HAN Network.
Welcome back. Hey, we're live, Kate.
We're live.
After we could have gone and got lunch during playing those. It was fun to have Bob Duff in here.
That was a really cool interview, I gotta say. I had a lot of fun doing it.
I enjoyed covering him when I was editor of the Darien Times years ago, and it's been kind of nice to watch him rise through the ranks. It's always nice, I think, too, to have someone from Fairfield County in a leadership position up in Hartford. So, but now let's take a look at some of the stories that have caught our eyes this week before we bring on the talented Doug Smith to make us laugh.
Well, one's a bizarre story, Josh. On Friday, while we were up at the New England Newspaper and Press Association conference in Boston, poor Jill Dion of the Milford Mirror was dealing with kind of a bizarre issue and some angry phone calls. An article that had gone viral on Facebook and the internet about a Detroit woman who allegedly gave birth to 14 children with 14 different men uses a photo that was stolen from the Milford Mirror website. As you can see, that's the photo. So this was being investigated by the Milford Hospital and by us too, kind of how this whole thing happened. But, you know, the story was about the first baby of the year in January of 2015, and that's where the photo came from, but they used it for kind of this ridiculous story.
I mean, my question is why did we have to form an investigation, our company or Milford Hospital, to find out how someone took a photo off of the internet?
Well, you know what it was? Like, I think that Jill Dion was dealing with some angry phone calls from people who didn't understand how easy it would be just for someone to rip off that photo. I think, some folks were upset. Right. And I think she did a good job of getting the story out there, like, hey, this isn't accurate. This is what this photo was used for. And I'm sure the family appreciates that.
I'm sure.
That's not a story you want your photo associated
No,
with.
of course not, but it's a stupid thing. I mean, because people take photos all the time. That's like this Stop and Shop investigating someone taking too many cheese cubes from the cheese cube, sample tray.
But it ended up being a fun story that a lot of media picked up from us.
Right. I mean, we'll take the hits, so
we will, and we did.
Perfectly fine.
Still taking them.
But I want to know where that investigation stands. I know John Kovach and Tom Nash are on it. I don't know if they've hired a bloodhound yet.
I just picture them with like a microscope, like looking over.
Yeah, wasting everybody's time.
All right, fair enough. Well, another story, Josh, that you actually found this week. Tell us a little bit about this. This has to do with State Representative Jason Perillo.
This is great. I like Jason Perillo.
We talked about it with Bob Duff, too.
We talked about it with Bob Duff, if you caught the part earlier in the show. So Jason Perillo, state rep from right here in Shelton, where our studios are, has been going around and buying up domain names. We saw this happen during the presidential campaign. JebBush.com became available. Someone bought it, then Donald Trump bought it. So now when you go to JebBush.com, even when he was still in the race, it takes you to Donald Trump's website. So the question is what is Jason Perillo doing? So he bought all sorts of things. He bought George Jepsen's who's the Attorney General, his website, a bunch of other ones, Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah.
No word on whether or not he bought Tim Herbst for Connecticut or Tim Herbst for, the evil empire of
Tim,
America.
he might have already purchased that.
I'm sure.
But
I think Tim purchased Tim Herbst for Connecticut when he was in 11th grade.
But I gotta say, I mean, I used to cover Jason and Sheldon. I kind of love this move. I mean, it's smart.
Yes.
It's thinking ahead. It might
is.
annoy some folks.
But then the state Democratic
this is
Party
also great.
went and bought JasonPerillo.net on Saturday after Hearst, Connecticut reported on this happening. So you go to that, and it's made to look like CT Capitol Report, which is a website that looks like the Drudge Report, and it includes what the Democrats call our awful votes from Jason Perillo made. If you're a Republican or a conservative, you might be happy with the votes that Jason Perillo made. But so it's kind of interesting.
I love it. I
and
love the back
Perillo's
and
the
forth.
GOP whip in the state house, and so it is fun. And Jason is he's very media savvy. Like Bob Duff, who we had on too, and we've seen those names kind of rise to the people the state reps who understand social media sooner than
definitely.
later. So no Czaplinski for governor.net that we know of, but Jason.
So the whole reason I'm hosting this show is to kind of make make the headway that I need to make that happen.
What else caught your eye this week, Kate?
Well, this is actually something that Eric Gendron sent us. Governor Daniel Malloy is backing a bill that would allow liquor retailers to determine the price of the alcoholic beverages they sell. The legislation has stalled in the past due to strong opposition from package store owners who claim higher prices in neighboring states is the result of the taxes, not the state's pricing system. And it happened again this week. Hundreds of package store owners descended on the Capitol complex in what is becoming an annual pilgrimage, according to Hearst Media, to protest what they see as the governor's efforts to make it harder for them to stay in business.
No, I mean, as much as I don't want the door to be shut in my face when I go to my local package store, in about 5 minutes,
right after
or maybe
the show.
on Friday, but this thing happens every year. That was all the special interests that are the locally owned package stores, because Connecticut limits how many people can own a store. So that makes it so it's basically mostly mom and pops. There's the Bev Maxes, there's some of the supermarkets that have their own separate thing that they own, but they're limited. I believe it's to 4. I think they might have raised it to 10 when Sunday sales came in. I'm not positive on that, but it's this whole idea that, if you sell booze, you're in a special thing and you're protected by the government, so that you have to keep prices higher so that there are more of you, and then that consumers have to pay the extra fee. It really should be that, are we looking out for the consumer, or are we looking out for, and it's, of course, we want small businesses to thrive, but there are ways to, get around this, and certainly you're up against it, but why isn't, someone who owns a locally owned grocery store, there's no limit on how much bacon you're allowed to sell and for what price, so why with booze?
Yeah. So that's an interesting story that I'm sure we'll be following some more of. We'll see what happens.
I know you'll be following it.
I'll be following it closely. But now it's the time in the show, the best part, where we start drawing conclusions with Doug Smith, our editorial cartoonist. This week, you seem to be having some trouble writing your letters. You're back in school.
I'm regressing there.
Throw Billy Madison.
So, Doug, you brought us you brought us some of this week's cartoons, and you also brought us some of your old political cartoons. We're going to get into that. Okay. But what do we have up first, Eric? Let's take a look. Shakespeare in the bar returns to Porky's Cafe. What light beer through yonder window breaks? This is a fun, silly one. And I kind of love this. This is an actual program that's happening in Shelton.
It's really caught on. It's really popular with the crowd down there. And Porky's is an institution in Shelton.
It is. Great wings.
Exactly.
Great drinks. And so what else do we have this week? Let's take a look. Well, Sam, after 7 years, you finally opened your hookah lounge. This is for Milford. It took a lot out of me. Now, we talked about this story on Coffee Break. This hookah lounge in Milford finally opened after battling for 7 years to do so. Crazy.
Yep.
So I like that. I like your little commentary on
that.
Whether you're for it or against it, poor Sam is really hung in there. And
he really has. I'm amazed. I thought he'd give up after such a long battle. I got to say, but the guy,
he's tenacious.
Yeah. All right, now tell us a little bit about this one.
The new health plan for the Board of Ed. I guess the town went in. It wasn't so much that they raised it on them, but they did it without, again, sort of a closed door thing. Did
Is
it
this
without
in Trumbull?
Their,
Yes,
did it without
been
their
a big
consent.
issue in Trumbull,
And
right?
they just want to be in on the loop.
That's been a big
we use the
topic
analogy of a
debate.
lock on the door, and let us know if you're going to change the lock.
So weird
type
when
thing.
officials in Trumbull do something without letting the entire
I
public
know.
know what's going on. That
It's
never
bizarre.
happens. That never
We
happens.
need to use your Boy Scout one from last week
Yeah.
for Trumbull. Yeah, we'll go back to that one.
Poor Boy Scouts.
And this one, the Army Engine Plant Project received a $200,000 grant. And I love this because I am a Stratford resident.
Oh,
and
you
I
know
know
about
what
the
this
cricket.
means.
Yep.
I used to go to the cricket all the time. So across the street from the Army Engine Plant was this little hot dog hamburger shop, tiny, called Cricket. And
Yep.
oh my gosh, I love
And
it.
every town has one, but they, claim their hot dogs are the best. But
Yes.
my wife grew up in Stratford, just
Yep.
goes on and on about the cricket.
They
how
were.
great
Well,
it
they
was.
used Hummel's hot dogs, which most places do, most of those local great hot dog places, and Hummel's hot dogs are the best. I have to say, as a child, I would only eat Hummel's brand hot dogs. I should be a paid sponsor for them.
There you
It
go.
sounds like you're a pain in the ass to raise.
I was. Really, my mom would try to give me different hot dogs and I
Oh my
wouldn't eat
God.
them. But anyway, I love that. So maybe Cricket will reopen with the grant. And tell us a little bit about this one, Martini Madness. Tickets available March 1st.
A little
Where's
plug
this?
for that's in Monroe.
Right.
And it's
Poor
a little
Alice.
thing to raise money, I guess. And we just use Alice in Wonderland there.
Yeah, imagine how much crazier that tea party would have
Exactly.
been.
We
Well,
got
that's
the,
an Alice in
you got
Wonderland
the
remake I
dormouse
would
there
watch.
passed out. I guess in the book he's asleep anyway, but now he really is.
And up next, tell us about this one, a little solar energy
Yeah.
harvesting.
They have a grid there at Samuel Staples, and they're claiming it's going to create at least 50% of their electricity. So
Wow.
Very
I didn't
cool.
know the sun shined that much in Easton.
The sun is always shining on Easton. All right, and up next, I think we have a little nod to leap year, which we only get every once in a
Yep.
while, and also about some of the nice weather we've had, right?
Exactly.
Kind of a commentary on that.
Until
I think
today.
Josh is formally celebrating Leap Day. You
I
have
always
the day
do.
off.
My religion does not allow me to work on Leap Day. So
And what do we have next? And I think it's the golf course concession is down to 2 bidders.
this has been going on for a few years in Ridgefield.
this is Richfield, yeah.
I love that. You could stand to miss a few meals.
Oh, it's actually done more for like just my general feeling about people. Kind of a reverse snob. People play golf the way they dress, the way they act. So
Okay.
I couldn't resist.
I love it. I love it. And I believe, now tell us about this one.
In Darien, they're going to replace the street lights with LED lights. And
They did
hopefully
this
by
recently.
spring they're going to have it done.
They did this recently in Stratford, and it totally freaked me out on many streets because all of a
Right.
sudden it was like a
That's
dark,
right.
dingy street, and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
it looks like,
I know, it
there's
was outside my house. It had rained, and right after they did it, there was this light reflecting off the street.
I know.
of all
It
things.
totally shocked
Was
me
it because
too.
it doesn't spray out? There's not as much like light spray from
I
it?
guess it's
or
more
I think
concentrated.
it's just more concentrated.
Yeah.
It's really much more powerful than the old streetlights we used to have. It almost kind of threw me off, when it's outside your window. And up next, the Downtown Rotary. Where's this?
This is in New Canaan, and the problem being that people have trouble, like a lot of towns have trouble shopping in New Canaan, and because they claim the store owners are taking all the
Yeah.
prime spots.
Oh, are they?
And there's
that
90-minute
certainly
park.
happens, yes.
Yeah.
On Main Street, there's 90-minute parking, so the store owners just have someone go out, stand in the
move.
spot, they drive around the corner and park
Yeah.
there again.
Oh, that's amazing.
The customers have to drive far away or park in municipal lots and pay for their parking, so it's just, I did it as a vicious cycle.
You know who actually is the most responsible for this are realtors. It's not even the people who own the shops, because a lot of them I think are starting to understand, or they do understand that they need customers to be able to come in. It's the realtors, because each one of them knows that they are more important than the other one. So it's like, well, I'm the only one taking this spot right now. So, but it's this perpetual thing that happens. We see it happen. I know it happens at Ridgefield.
Right.
It certainly happens in New Canaan, and so that was nice, Doug.
Now, up next, Doug, we have one of your cartoons that really just lets people know in an interesting way about an upcoming event. This is Weston Speak Up. They're
Right.
holding a forum on Saturday.
Yeah, Patty, the editor, asked me to do something about it, just to bring notice because it was in her editorial this
Right.
week.
So if people don't see it in editorial, don't see the news story, they might notice the
Right.
cartoon. So it's kind of another neat thing you can do to kind of show them that.
And this was actually the one I did previous to that she wanted, she felt it was making fun of the event more, so we didn't go with that one.
You're looking for the squeak up. Oh, poor thing. And up next, I believe this is for the Lewisboro Ledger, right?
Right.
Affordable housing goes through, if affordable housing goes through, the character of the town will change. Don't worry, if they keep raising taxes, you'll have to leave anyway. Very nice. I like it. Oh my gosh, and this next one might be my favorite one. Tell us about this.
Oh, okay. I thought, with all the elections and stuff going on, that I'd share some of the old political cartoons I did. So this one is going back a couple years, and somebody once said if George Bush was Darth Vader, then Dick Cheney had to be the emperor. So.
Evil Genius Retirement Village. Okay, so I see Darth, I see the Riddler. For a second, I was scared that was Abe Lincoln, but
no, just sort of a Snidely Whiplash type character.
Yes. No, I know, but for a second I was like, wait a minute, what's that about?
Well, the South considered him an evil genius.
That's true. And up next, this is through it all, Obama maintains his dignity.
That's when Obama was a new face on the scene, and he just seemed to be an all-around good guy at the time.
I think that's a good point, because that holds through. And David Brooks wrote that column in the New York Times a few weeks ago, and pointing out, and I disagree with a lot of what Barack Obama says and does, but when was the last time we had a president go 2 terms without having a scandal, without being accused? It was either, Bush had a lot of scandals he was done. Clinton, of course, did. Reagan did. But Obama's a nice family guy, he's, a friendly person, and maybe too friendly and doesn't have backbone enough to get enough done. But it's going to be different when Ted Cruz is president.
We're a biased news agency.
Trust Ted.
Trust Ted.
Hashtag trust Ted.
All right, tell us about this next one, Doug.
This is going way back, but this is about the now mayor, Joe Ganim. This is back when he first got in trouble and went to jail, and I got his dad there with a cake for him.
With a file in it.
Yep.
The classic file.
How come they never put that in movies anymore?
Now, this is amazing, because we do have to say, wow, look at the change.
I know, only in America.
How long ago was this,
This is 2007, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, you can see the signature down there. And he's talking about his Scooter Libby letter, the attorney, which is kind of ironic, because didn't Scooter Libby get in trouble for the CIA scandal of some sort?
I think so, yeah.
But you were going to say only in America?
Only in America can you be mayor, go to jail, come out, and become mayor again.
Yeah,
Yep.
hey.
So.
It's a fun
Or only
story.
in Bridgeport and Providence.
Yeah.
Well, Doug, as always, so much fun to talk to you this week.
You.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much for
Doug.
joining us. Josh, that's going to do it for this week's CT Polls.
Yeah, thanks to Bob Duff for coming in this week, and Doug Smith, and for Kate.
Yeah, and if you watched anything, catch it on demand, all right?
And maybe Eric, too, over there.
Well, we'll see you next Wednesday. Have a great day.